I think the reality of most of these kits and wide body kits is they make the cars worse.
True.
Traditionally, wide body cars are generally race cars.
Yeah.
So they're never needed to last forever. They don't care if they last forever. And then, like, all these little subtle things that come after the fact of not doing inner fenders, you'll see them all the time.
Yes.
You see these little spider cracks on people's wide body fenders. Why? Because a rock smoked it from the backside and it's trying to come out the top. And it's like, I don't think a lot of people take into account how much abuse a street car actually takes.
Yes.
Stick your arm out the window at 100 miles an hour, and that's what your body kit's going through the entire
All the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, just try that, right? Like, I mean,
Because you look at it and you're like, oh, yeah, that's good.
That's
it's going to be fun.
solid.
Perfect. Go stick your head out the window and see what happens.
yeah. All right. Phone down. Oh, yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of Modify with Trick Factory Customs. If this is your first time watching, my name is Elvis.
Tim?
I'm Rob.
On this podcast, we talk about cars. We're a custom automotive shop located here in British Columbia, Canada, Vancouver. And on this episode, we are going to be discussing wide body kits. Or are they dead? Are they dying? What? Just more about wide body kits, because wide body kits are a very love or hate thing. And actually, what brought up this topic was I've always admired the RWB wide body kits. If you don't know what they are, they're pretty much Porsche. Akira Nakai, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. So he designed these wide body kits. I think was the first one to do it to Porsches. Ish.
No.
We're gonna dive into that. Tim,
Let's not go too deep.
Tim and Rob have a very interesting, and I completely agree with it too. I was at an RWB thing where he was building an RWB car, and so we're gonna be talking about that. But it made me think about the question of, are they dead? Are they dying? Because I feel like in the last few years, I feel like we hit a peak. Maybe around like maybe early 2000s.
I would say 2019 is when I started to notice the fall of the modern wide body kit.
It became less and less of a thing. Well, anyway, we'll dig into it.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about all of that, and we're also going to be talking about LS swapped Porsches as well.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. I'm just throwing that out there.
Exactly. Yes, we've
end.
talked about them before, but something special about this Porsche that I saw, we're going to dive into it later, was this was an LS swapped RWB 993. And I was very, very excited about it.
How can you tell he's fired up?
I know. So we're going to be talking about everything wide body. And with that said, we're going to get started. So how has the week been? We've been very busy.
Getting very hectic.
Yes.
SEMA stuff. Now we're kind of at the point where we got to keep it under wraps a little bit. But, yeah, it's been a long week. And I think it's going to get worse. It's getting better and worse, because I think we're past the grinding, dirty, greasy, heavy fab part of it. And now it's like, even today we had more shiny new parts show up, so it's getting a lot funner, but it's still good. There's still a lot left to do.
So it's just we're like deep into like SEMA prep, right? Like the standard SEMA crunch thing. It's a real situation that everybody prepping to go to SEMA has to kind of go through. We've been at it now long enough that we kind of prepared, and like our SEMA crunch this year is a little bit less hectic than it has been in the previous years. So, but there's still sort of like the things that sort of like crop up during the SEMA prep, the SEMA build, and like getting all the parts that you need when you need them is always going to be a bit of a thing. So we have a few things we're waiting for. So
there's always,
and it's that,
like,
but we're pretty well prepared.
It's Murphy's Law, though.
Yeah.
Like, we take the frame, the blaster, and it's like, yep, no problem. We're going to turn it around for you the same day. Like, drop it off in the morning,
We're like,
and pick it up.
sweet.
So we go rolling in there this morning, and it's like, oh, the machine's broken and we have no sand.
No.
Yeah,
It's like those types of...
Oh my gosh.
So do this kind of stuff. It's like you have to be really good at sort of taking punches.
Yeah.
You know. So that's one of those ones.
So we're getting the whole frame blasted, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
The whole frame for that build is, it's all modified and upgraded, and
Yeah.
So it's required to a full refinish.
And of course, the machine is broken.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's gonna put us. It's not really gonna put us behind per se, because we have other things to work on that also need to get done. It's just gonna change our order of attack, really.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Because
it's not like devastating. It's not like it's not like a linchpin by any means. It would have been nice to have it, because I think that's the big piece that everyone starts to get excited, like when the roller comes together and you're like, now we got something. Whereas right now,
frame off restoration.
Yeah, now we're scattered all over the place, and every department's got a little bit, and it's just like, oh man, are we going to get there? But
yeah, I mean, it puts us back a couple of days, but like we're saying, like we're prepared enough, that those couple of days is not gonna break us.
That's good.
So
Nice.
It's funny though, because like the panic's already setting in, but the reality of it is like each group within our thing here has their own thing to do. But on a normal job, the amount of time that they have to do it in would be plenty. It's like if you brought your car in and you needed 2 seats and a whatever upholstered, and I told it'd be 10 days.
Yeah.
But we have 4 weeks. But the whole SEMA thing is just like, oh my God, I don't know if we're going to get it done. This is crazy. It's like, don't worry about my part. Only worry about your part. You have more than enough time to accomplish your part within that time frame. Don't worry about the rest, because we're all putting in that same 4 weeks at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's going to come together.
Yeah.
It's going to be fine. But
it's just the last little bit of it, like probably the last couple of weeks, when all the parts kind of come together as one. You're doing your final assembly. That's
when you start to trip over
I think that's
each
when
other a
we're
little
all
bit.
kind of like, okay, well, let's hopefully we're not tripping over each other and trying to do things last minute. And like I said, we're pretty well prepared this time, so
Yeah.
shouldn't be so bad. But that's kind of what we've been doing the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It's all about that.
Yeah.
It's all about
And I think it's going to get done. Seeing the amount of things that you guys have been able to achieve in shorter time periods, maybe I'm too relaxed about it. I don't know, but I think it'll be fine. Yeah. And so, but it's really cool though to see all the stuff you guys have been doing with all the grinding and the welding and making everything work like it's supposed to. And something that's also cool is, compared to previous years, I think we were talking about this before, but of just how much of a facet the whole 3D scanning, printing, and all of that has played in, or how much of a part it's played in this.
It's been a huge
build.
part of this project.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was just this last year that we upgraded our shop to have the potential for that kind of stuff, and it's a necessary part of business and creation now, and yeah, we're making the most of it this year.
I think I'd say the industry as a whole might have another year where you're just not going to be able to do it without this stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because right now you have an entire sort of crew of people and shops and builders that are slowly adapting this, and then there's a learning curve.
Yeah.
But once all these guys get on the other side of the learning curve within the next year, I think it's going to be the only way to do it. It's the only way you're going to be able to stay competitive.
As you were saying, you can't do it fast enough.
Yeah, you can't do it fast enough. Like the stuff that we've created in like days would have taken weeks before, and not been of the same quality and standard that it is now.
Yeah.
Like these parts that we're creating now look OEM. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's fun. It's so cool to be a part of something like this. It's really fun. It's a little stressful, no matter what. It always is, but it's still cool.
Yeah. So you get the parts created or in the 3D space, then those get sent off to the laser guy, and then he pretty much
Cuts them out,
and
profiles
that's it.
them, then brings them back, and then we fold them, do any final little tweaks to them, fit them, weld them, and you're done.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Plus the design side of it is learning how to design within these new abilities is pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Because when you're standing there and you know that you got to get the die grinder out and a plasma cutter and you're going to be grinding for 2 hours, your mind tends to simplify things back to a point that seems manageable, and generally that looks very
basic.
Because it's just super labor intensive. So it's like now it's like the finished product looks like you put an immense amount of time into it, but it's pretty cool.
Awesome. And so with that said, we're just going to dive right into the topic. So wide body kits, wide bodies, all about wide bodies. Are wide bodies dead, dying? What is the future? We have no idea, by the way, but we
can speculate.
Yeah, we can speculate. And before we begin, we all have wide body cars, or we've all done wide body things. And so personally, I'm just going to start personally. I love wide body. I think wide body just transforms the look of every car that you put on it. There are some cars, even some cars that are like, you look at them and you're like, yeah, there's no way that design can be saved. And then you put like some fender flares on it and just do like a body kit or something. At least me, I just like to put wide body on everything. But do you guys have a different outlook on wide bodies or no?
I like fat tires more than I like wide bodies. So I think wide bodies are secondary to wanting fat tires.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I like a booty. No, I yeah, wide bodies are pretty cool. Wide bodies are cool. I like more functional sort of wide body kind of stuff versus just straight up wide flares for the sake of it. I gravitate more towards functional stuff, functional kits, aero kits.
Yeah, I don't really care about the function. I just want it to look sick.
I think most people don't care about the function.
Yeah, most people they don't seem to care.
I think the reality of most of these kits and wide body kits is they make the cars worse.
True.
Yeah. No,
kind of.
Give me an example.
It's pretty much. It's a true thing.
A lot of cars, usually wide body kits, at least from my understanding, help to increase the width of, because you're putting bigger tires on it. So I feel like it makes it more stable, more like you have more ground, what do you say, mechanical grip because of wide bodies.
Yes. I mean, that you could say that. If you got big fat tires, you got more mechanical grip. That's a given, right? But
So
you also that also comes at the cost of other things as well. Big fat sticky tires on normal streets tend to, let's say, I call it tram lining. Like where
tram lining?
like when you're driving down the road and your car is kind of darting from side to side because your tires are following the ruts of the road more, and it just feels a little bit twitchy and sort of unusual.
It's mostly on like heavy transport routes.
Yeah,
like you get on the highway where there's a lot of big rigs and trucks, and if your car doesn't fall within those ruts, the standard sort of track width of your average passenger car, I'll hit it in my car with 325s on the back, and you'll still, because it's trying to climb.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? And it'll track all over the place.
Oh, I thought my car was always terrible, but I thought that makes sense why.
Whereas then you'll get a brand new flat piece of pavement that hasn't been touched, and then you come around the corner,
glorious,
and it just turns into magic. But but the rest of the time you're just like constantly fighting it because you're just a hair outside of those grooves.
That is so. I never thought that was a thing.
Yeah,
wow.
I mean it's a balancing act, right? It's a thing. So you get super wide, and then all of a sudden that's a reality. If you're on a racetrack, fully prepped surface, fantastic. It's so good. How good you cannot go wrong. More mechanical grip, I would say, probably 9 out of 10, or is going to be better.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah,
plus it looks sick to have.
Yeah, it looks dope too.
It's pretty sick. Yeah, yeah. And you also, minus making your car worse, you also mentioned what it does to like suspension components.
Yeah, if you don't have
the
suspension for it, it's not going to be great.
Right. I mean, and that's really, really apparent in, say, classic muscle cars and things of that nature, right? Like you look back into the 60s and 70s, those chassis and things like that. You put a modern fitment wheel and tire package on that thing, and then all of a sudden the thing handles like a pile of garbage.
And it can't do a burnout.
Right?
There's too much grip.
Yeah. And so those cars, they suffer from that. And then you just imagine if you wide body one of those, it just gets even worse.
Yeah. And then if you're doing like a lot of wide body, like legitimate wide body cars, they have suspension components and suspension systems designed to be that wide. Whereas a lot of these guys, you're taking like a deep offset wheel to push that wheel way out. Now you got all this extra load on everything, and it's generally not meant to carry it.
Yeah.
Well, and like even stupid stuff, wheel bearings, all kinds of things are all loaded way heavier than they should be.
Yeah, and then like a lot of people will they will put like say wheel spacers and things like that on their vehicles to compensate for the extra wide body width, you know, and what ends up happening there, and there's going to be smarter people out there that can explain this better than me, but like you change the scrub radius in the front of your tires on your steering axle, and your car behaves like total garbage.
Yeah.
You know, you're wearing out tires, you're just wearing everything out, and it's trash. It's like going backwards in what the car's capabilities were. It makes it a worse driving vehicle than it ever was. So if you start with something great like a Porsche or any great car, and you just go wide body and you put spacers in there because you can't afford the big super wheels, then it's just going to be worse. You're ruining a good car.
But if you change the offset, does that, like the wheel offset, does that affect it as much? Because
it does because when you start talking about the geometry of how that stuff relates, like the scrub radius, and again, I'm not that smart with this. I have a basic understanding. If you push the wheels out that much farther with like negative offset, you're changing all of those dimensions as well as. So it's not just by doing the spacers, but it's making it wider and pushing more negative offset out. It does hamper the ability of your car to behave the way it was intended.
And depending on how wide you go, you may not have the ability to adjust it within a set parameters. So you see all these cars and it's like they got funky worn tires and it's not good.
Yeah. So, and then like another thing, like because we've done lots of wide bodies in the shop and stuff, like you go super negative offset on your steer axle on your front end, and now you're going lock to lock with your steering wheel. That extra offset means you need even more clearance within your wheel well, right? And you get some vehicles like the 996 Porsche, like all these cars, like they're so jam-packed with all the components required to make the vehicle function properly that now all of those are being compromised for fitment. Like now, okay, well, if I want to run these wheels in this kind of setup, now I got to cut out fucking, you know, evap canisters and, you know, your washer fluid containers. They're all coming out. They don't fit anymore. They don't work. And it just becomes a bit of a thing. And, you know, more often than not, they never get put back in anywhere. And usually, I would say more people don't put or fabricate inner fenders and stuff like that for all of their wide bodies and stuff as well. Like that's really, really common because that is something that you don't see, and people don't really put a lot of emphasis on the requirement of what that thing was actually doing. So anyways, I think wide bodies kind of suck for the most part for that.
I'd say
stuff.
the modern day wide body, because it's all aesthetics. There's not like we have a selection of wide body vehicles here, but these were basically all out of necessity because you needed more mechanical grip, because you needed all these different things to make the car do what it needed to do. Whereas the stuff now is just like lick and stick over fenders.
Like I would agree,
and it really doesn't do anything.
And like Rob mentioned, that's so true about people not even finishing the inner fenders well, or like doing everything that it takes to actually make a wide body car. So I drove a Ferrari F12, a wide body Ferrari F12 a few weeks ago. And it was so interesting because,
I mean, and the concept of that just sounds awesome. So it's like, oh shit.
It was glorious. But this car looks amazing. It sounds glorious. It has a straight pipe from one of the straight pipe exhaust companies. I forgot what it was. But once you came closer, from like a few feet, it looked sick. But once you start coming closer and looking at the details, it was just not the best.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things that it was so disappointing because you expect a Ferrari, especially something that they've done that to be literally perfect. But that one, it had like the inner fenders, they didn't build new inner fenders for it, and so half of the way you just see where the inner fender just stops, and just left it there, and you could see through. Oh my gosh, it just kind of let me down. And also because we're also going to talk about like bolted on versus what did they call it, like bonded on, and all of that. We're talking about those kind of flares, but this one was bonded on. But the transition between the Ferrari body and the wide body flares and the fenders was also not done great. And so you could still see, like, it looked like my Datsun, like my bodywork in my Datsun, because I did this thing like 5 years ago, and I used basic materials, and I got tired of sanding, and I couldn't do some of the transition stuff well. And so it kind of looks like that, where you see some bumps, some of the body filler, it's not perfectly even. And I was like, but then they didn't even paint over that. They used a wrap to hide the not great bodywork. So I feel bad talking about it now, but at the same time,
what you're describing is the most common thing. You see it all the time, right?
Which is crazy, because now we see it applied to supercars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you tend to have this preconceived notion of how good it should be.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is it's not that good. Like the people that get their hands on these cars, man, they just shouldn't be touching them. Like, they shouldn't be. Like, I only know of one properly finished wide body kit that has inner fenders, an under tray, and all those transition pieces and proper mounting, and we did it. And I would say doing all of that took just as long as doing the kit itself.
That's crazy. Just the finishing stuff to get it to that point.
And that car looks amazing. Like, it's held out so good. But 90% of those kits, I'm like, you can talk Liberty Walk, RWB, fucking any of those guys, there's no mounting that comes with it. You're almost left on your own to figure out all your mounting. Liberty Walk's decent, but it's crazy money. But any of these other lower level kits, you're on your own to figure out how to mount it.
Wow.
And make your own supports and all that kind of stuff. Like the first RWB build that I seen, he was hammering in some 3/8 round aluminum tube flat and putting a screw through it to support the fenders. And I was like, oh, that's what's going on here. So that stuff just does, very rarely do you see it last. Like, it doesn't last very long. Like, it looks great when it's done, it's amazing, but I think you need to go back and put a bunch more effort into it. Because traditionally wide body cars are generally race cars. So they're never needed to last forever. They don't care if they last forever. And then, like, all these little subtle things that come after the fact of not doing inner fenders, you'll see them all the time.
Yes.
You see these little spider cracks on people's wide body fenders. Why? Because a rock smoked it from the backside and it's trying to come out the top. And it's like, they look bad as soon as they get used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, like body kits kind of originated probably from like necessity for like racing applications and just things like that. Like, you know, it didn't matter about the spider cracking and all that. Those cars and everything about them were somewhat disposable. You know, they weren't intended to, or at least anything about them, they were serviced really frequently. And like, okay, this over fender is about to crack and fall off, better put a new one on.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's
all that matters.
Juice fasteners in it and send it back out. We joke about it all the time because everybody's like, when they're trying to brag up or chat up a friend, it's like, oh yeah, I got this buddy who works on race cars. We know through actual experience, race car is like, get it fixed with whatever you have and get it back out there.
Yeah.
So you get a couple of 2-3 seasons of that on any given race car. That's why you see them for 10 grand because it's just, you know, it's too much after a while.
They just get worn right out.
Yeah, right. They're meant to work.
Yeah.
That's it. So it's like, and then I don't think a lot of people take into account how much abuse a street car actually takes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. And you'll never see that kind of abuse on a street car.
No.
You're not going in and out of driveways and shitty parking lots and all this kind of stuff, and it just eats these kits up.
Yeah. And speaking of that too, now that I mentioned that, so with going back to my Datsun again, when I did all this stuff, I didn't know anything about spider cracking, any of that stuff. And so even though I used metal, I kind of made some metal flares. I didn't really use like weld it all the way. I used body filler to fill in I just like tack. Yeah. And so there was still some space, but because again, it's a street driven car and I've daily driven that thing for like a few years now, but it's really showing its age. It looks not good. Like the filler is also kind of separating. Yeah. I didn't do a good job of actually like laying it on, and I probably laid it on too thick or did some anyway, but all of that, like rocks landing on it, like it does not look like it looked for the first month. Was probably like the best time. Was like, yeah, this thing is
brand
sick.
New, right? It's fresh. It hasn't even barely been used yet at all.
Yeah, but if you see it now, it's like I'm almost embarrassed to take it out to any car shows anymore. So it's just sad. And so I just parked it and I just leave it until I've uninsured it, and I'm gonna like redo the whole thing again from scratch. Yeah. And at least now I know what to do and what not to do. And you guys are there to also walk me through some of the things.
So this is a live and learn kind of situation, right? And like how we do body kit installations and stuff like that is based on our experiences as well. Like, you know, go back way in the old days, I learned about fiberglass and how to sort of approach it for street use from when we used to, you know, race sport bikes and shit like that. Like, cause we all had like fiberglass race body work and stuff like that on our bikes, and it's subjected to massive amounts of vibration and all of those kind of things, shock load, and it just breaks. And you're like, oh shit, well, good thing this is my own thing and I'm just going to fix it. We ended up painting our motorcycles like every season because these are the things that you live and learn, and you know how to approach it better with a little bit of experience. If you're lucky enough, you have a mentor teach you these things, but we didn't. And
you learn real quick. Like you take a stock bumper off and it's got 24 bolts and you're like, man, you don't need that much bolts. Just put 5 back in, it'll be fine. It's never fine.
No, there's a reason for why it is, right? And so if you approach your installs thinking about like how it's going to be impacted by street use, it'll last a lot better. You'll have
just stick your arm out the window at 100 miles an hour. And that's what your body kit's going through the entire
all the time.
Yeah, just try that, right? Like, I mean,
because you look at it, and you're like, oh yeah, that's good.
That's
it's gonna be fine.
Solid.
Perfect. Go stick your head out the window and see what happens.
Yeah. But so what do we got here in front of us? We got 3 cars.
Yes.
That kind of dictate or sort of showcase 3 different types of kits.
So we're going to start with the Porsche because
just
that's
the RWB thing.
Yeah. So let's talk about the RWB thing. So concerning the way it fits, at least what I saw, I think it fit relatively well, or it had fit well before, because I think they prepare the car
it
before he arrives, and so I don't think he had to do that much work in fitting, because I know he was done in like a day or 2, which is mind-blowing. And I don't know if he had inner fenders. I don't remember looking inside the
I've never seen inner fenders with an RWB kit.
So that's
could be wrong, maybe, but
so I didn't see it. But so talk about the RWB, because you guys have seen him do a car before. So talk about the RWB thing, because I feel like there's some misconception with thinking that they are the first to do that to Porsches or make wide body Porsches.
Well, he most definitely, like sensationalized, popularized, and brought, bolt-on flares.
I think he was the first
the mainstream
guy doing it during the social media era. That's why it traveled so fast.
Yeah.
But there used to be like companies like Strozik and like all Gambala and all these old guys that built crazy shit back in the day. When I was reading like Porsche Excellence magazine as a kid, he was definitely not the first person to do it. There's like been a lot of people wide bodying cars for race purposes and all this stuff for a long time, but he's definitely garnered the most attention for it. Especially in this time of when like, this is kind of a weird time for Euro cars, because you have like that super hardcore purist group.
Yes.
So like the idea of taking something, specifically a Porsche, you pick anything else, you can cut it up all you want. Nobody gives a shit. But a Porsche is like, it has this like people believe it's automotive perfection, absolute perfection. And I've been in a million forum groups just trying to ask simple questions because we have Porsches, and it's like, as soon as you do, it's like, why would you change that?
Yeah.
Like a Porsche engineer put that on there for a reason. Why do you think you're smarter? Why, if they needed that to have that, it would have it. And you're like, okay, then why is there 8 levels of a 911 then? Like, how come they just don't only sell a GT3 RS?
Yeah.
Like, there's obviously different reasons.
Yeah,
all this kind of stuff. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. There's been a lot of people doing it for a long time, but he was like, yeah, I mean, he put a lot of style to it too. And he just hit it right at the right time, I think.
Yeah,
it's that outlaw hype, like outrageous, like it checks all the boxes for these young kids, like all of them. So
I mean, I fell in love with it a long time ago.
We bought a Porsche with the sole intent of doing one.
Yeah, I wanted to do it desperately. Like I only ever saw him online, and then had the opportunity a couple of times now to see him to work his install magic, and yeah, it's cool, man. He's brought a really cool thing to the world.
Yeah.
It's cool that he's evolving it into some of the newer water cooled cars now as well. It's really cool.
Yeah.
But like, I may be wrong, but I believe Nakai used to work with Promodet. So Promodet had the wide body Porsche as well.
What is Promodet? That's
a company way back in the day. Like, and I'm just pulling this out of what I remember. Guy from Driftworks was talking about, because he's got a Promodet 964 wide body, and it looks just like an RWB car, but it's molded on body, flares.
Yep.
And as far as I understand, I think he was saying that Nakai used to work there.
Oh.
And then kind of did his own thing and created,
wow,
the rough world.
Yeah, the whole RWB thing is like, there's like a persona attached to the cars.
Yeah.
So it's like a whole package.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which is
like
really
that.
cool.
It's cool.
It is so cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like his no branding approach is like genius branding. Like it's a whole thing.
He has branding?
Yeah, but he's kind of like the anti-hero kind of thing, and then brought in all that branding, like the original Stella Artois and like all that kind of stuff, and it's like now it's created this own thing. Like it's a whole community of people.
And I know, yeah.
He has this personality that like we were discussing. Like, I wonder if this is his actual personality or if this is like
a face that he puts
game
on
face while he's doing it. Like that super stoic Japanese, like
smoking that cigarette and thinking about life. And
but is the reality? Does he just show up and like, oh man, I gotta fucking do another one of these things?
I don't know.
When he's looking at the cars, he's thinking about what else, other things he's got to do.
It's like, oh shoot, I gotta do laundry later, man. Oh,
I think they're in like RWB, like they're in the hundreds now.
Yeah,
like 200 and something.
Probably more. I feel like it's more because I feel like I see almost a post all the time of him just traveling to places and doing RWB builds.
Yeah, so that was like the big thing after the initial hype of it. Then it was like first in Seattle, first in Boston, first in Brazil, and then
first in Vancouver.
Yeah, now it's like, there's 2 done here last weekend.
Yep.
There's been 5 here before. There's 10 over there. So now you're like RWB 14 of Vancouver. Like, so it's like now it's kind of getting a little thin, but now that he's transitioned into 997 stuff now he's got a whole new canvas to work
brand new. Yeah.
So now what you see is like the first 997 RWB in Canada. You're like,
sure,
okay.
man.
I still think it's super cool.
No, it's super cool, but it's like the hype is kind of dying down. Like,
it's definitely
so
not.
I don't think it's dead because I would 100% own one if I could.
Yes,
but
me too.
It doesn't impact me the same way as it once did.
And is this just all wide bodies or specifically RWB?
No, I'd say transitioning into like, I don't want to pick on people and then the people below, these are like the top of the game. So like Liberty Walk has a very distinctive style.
Yep.
That's been copied and applied to 800 other different cars. Yeah. So now it's just like it doesn't do anything for me, like zero, because it's almost repetitive now.
Yep.
It's like it seems too obvious.
Yes.
So before it dies, I'd like somebody to just come up with something nicer. Like the bolted on flare thing, like if we're going to get specific about wide bodies,
Yes.
I would say the bolted on flare, and I have bolted on flares, is dead. Like it's dead. I don't care to see any more of it. Like if I was to do anything else to my car, it would be maybe mold my flares on.
Interesting.
In the future.
That is so interesting.
That's it. Like
Yeah.
I wish I had done it, but I was trying to be smart and be like, you know what, let's just get this thing done so I can drive it and use it. This is dragging on too long. Let's just put it on the way it's intended. But I wish I had molded it.
That's so interesting. And you're talking of your Porsche or?
Yeah, my old new kit.
Okay.
There's another kit out of Japan.
Yeah.
It's
interesting because it's like a half and half. You did the front,
it's got
molded
a
on the
slant
rear.
nose, front end, which is a complete conversion.
Yep.
And then the back has that very much bolted on. We're going to say Liberty Walker RWB style, but that is not the case. That's like throwback way to like old GT cars. Like you used to see Panteras, old school Porsches, all that stuff had that bolt on over fender stuff. And that's where it originally came from. So
yeah, that's very interesting because also we got some comments on the videos that we put up, and I was like, why didn't you just mold it in, like make it look like the front?
well, the reality of that particular kit is it didn't lend well to molding. So like if you're going to have a molded on kit, you need some sort of landing area to supply the adhesive to bond it properly. So that was just going to be a tremendous amount of extra work that I just wasn't into doing at the time. Whereas like the Miles Work wide body, which is kind of a very RWB proportions, but a molded, bonded on kit.
Yep.
But for the 996 platform is where it started, because the 996 platform has sort of like always been the ugly stepchild. So nobody really did much for it. So now that one's a bonded kit and it looks amazing.
It looks so good.
But the problem with that kit is it's almost a little bit too wide, and the approach angle of where it did it, it still has that lapped seam. So, you know, you wouldn't be able, you run out of room to blend the kit before you get to the C-pillar window, like to the pocket window. Then your ledge would get thick. So it's the same as like this Ferrari that you're talking about. That's why it probably looks so crappy, because it's, you know, and then that Porsche, that lip comes right, it's like an inch and a half away from the window.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So it'd either have to dive off and you'd end up with a weird landing, or you got to pull that flare down a bit so you have enough transition.
I feel like I need to see some of this in actual like person, or you explaining it for it to make
it still creates
sense.
A very obvious wide body. Like it's not like a narrow body, wide body kind of thing. Like when you look at that car, it's like, boom, that's a wide body. And crazy, they bonded and molded the kit. Whereas if we had completely blended it, might have got mistaken for something else.
Oh, that's interesting.
I doubt it, because the thing's like 14 inches wider.
It is so wide.
But I mean, you could.
Yeah, that is actually a curious thing to say. Bonding, or not bonding, but showing that seam versus blending it. I'm curious to know if it actually hides it. Do you know if anyone has done it to the Milesworks kit and just hidden it?
I don't think you could.
Oh,
I don't think there'd be any way that, because we contemplated it, but it just didn't play out well. It's just
I would have to assume that somebody has done it.
And I think you would see the tell. There'll be a little.
Okay, it's not going to look as natural as this one looks.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Interesting.
Yeah, you're playing around with some shit like overly thick areas of body filler, or super thin fiberglass edging. Like it's just doing something like that. It just kind of sucks.
Yeah. And so you would never wide body your Porsche? I feel like you've gone. If I'm going to put a picture up of what Rob's Porsche looks like, but I feel like now it almost looks like...
You mean the way it looks right now?
Yeah. I feel like it looks like there's more work.
It's so crazy because we keep looking at it and it's like it's taking on its own personality. Like if you've watched movies like Mad Max and like a couple of these other ones of that sort of style, where this guy has this like relationship with his car, and it's not the best car, but it's like this is his ride or die.
Yeah,
that's Rob's car.
Yeah, 100%. That's a good way of explaining it. It's okay. So you're gonna post a picture of what my car looks like right now.
Now, yes.
And I'm gonna give you the rendering that I made of what my car is going to look like when I'm done with it. So I'm working my way through all the steps in the background while I still daily drive it.
Yeah.
So
this is what we talk about all the time. Like, do what you can while you can use it. Like, before you make your car completely unusable and it turns into this dead project, it's like, this is probably the best. But at the same time, you got to be able to endure what Rob does on the freeway, where people are like, what the heck?
Yeah, you know what? And the way my car looks right now, it is unbelievable how much attention it gets right now.
Yeah.
I get people like, I had a guy this morning giving me the hang loose.
That's so
like,
funny.
It's so sick.
Because he took out the
All
rear
the
bumper
time.
now.
It happens way more now than I ever imagined it.
Because when it's crazy and it's polished and it looks like it's like, oh, there's another rich asshole. But this looks like
a work in progress.
Like boots on the ground, like I'm making it happen, and it's like, it sounds like one of those old country songs.
My neighbors are
one day
like,
I got a
what is happening?
Like, I had two of my neighbors the other day fucking hit me up. They're like, dude, what's going on with your car, man? Like, every day you come home and
it looks worse.
It's, something else is missing, or your
like,
paint is all ground off over here. It's like, what are you doing? I'm like, dude, it's gonna be so sick, man.
When it's done.
But no, it's wild. But no, to answer your question, I'll never wide body that car. I love it. It's a standard base Carrera narrow body spec. I love it.
But it could be so much more.
No, it's so true.
Come on, man. Just send it. I will help you. I will give you the extra. I'll give you the help you need. Just.
You heard it. You heard it here. Yeah.
I will help you myself.
I appreciate that, Elvis.
Oh, you're
Thank you so much.
Elvis is, what is it? No, I would say you're a master of cutting stuff apart.
Yes.
And a student of putting it back together.
Putting it back together. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
No, it's cool, man. It's cool.
One more thing about wide body stuff. So on your Evo, what kind of style do you have? Is it the same as the one the other Evo that we're doing? Because the way I saw the mounting, it was interesting. It almost looks like it's kind of a bolt-on affair, but you don't see the bolts.
Evo?
Yeah.
On the Evo?
Yeah. Oh, on the Evo?
Yeah.
Because there's like so many ways to do
OEM
it.
style. So that's like it reverse mounts through the fender into the flare.
So I like that look. I really like that look. It still
so
works.
you still have a very obvious over fender, but you don't have the bolts.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of work. And that's kind of more like, that's basically, a lot of those parts were pulled off the original parts. And that's how they put it on. It's just we widened it and made it a lot more aggressive looking. But I like that style.
Yeah.
But you don't see it on a lot of vehicles.
No, I haven't seen it much, honestly.
Yeah. That's kind of like a weird DTM sort of transition time. Because even BMW didn't adopt it. They just did it straight into the panel. And that's where you get those M3 wide bodies.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the whole Pandem style came from, is that very obvious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I want to talk a little bit about LS swapping that Porsche, or LS swapping Porsches in general. We've kind of talked about it. Rob doesn't want to LS swap his.
This is a perfect tie-in, because the thing that bothers me about most wide bodies, and it's like we've had people comment on stuff. It's like my Evil Evo, and we were mentioning it this morning. Is like, because we were talking about this other guy that builds these amazing bodies, but that's basically as far as it goes. So, like my Evil Evo, when you start it, it's nuts. It sounds and
like it looks.
So wide body cars, for the most part, and this is a tie-in to like this LS swapped RWB, is like that thing's gonna rip.
Yeah.
It's gonna be as fast as those things are intended to look.
Yes.
Whereas you see all these wide body kits on most of these. Okay, I gotta get some wide body kits on front wheel cars. Front wheel drive cars should not be a thing.
Why?
Because it's stupid.
I don't think
Goes
it's
against
stupid.
the
I think
entire
it's
reason
sick.
why you should even have a wide body car. Should only have a
Why?
wide body car because you need fatter tires, because you need more grip, and you need to go faster.
What if they have a front wheel drive car that has a lot of power?
The back tires on a front wheel drive car should never be riding in the front. It's so crazy. It just doesn't make any damn sense to me.
It looks
If you got a front
cool.
wheel drive car and you got a 325 on the back, it's ridiculous.
It looks sick though. It's like, okay, even I feel like
It
even
looks sick. That's it.
yeah, it's even. It's like more even because imagine if it was not. It would. I feel like it'll look it'll look almost like a reverse,
don't do it.
like a reverse
Just don't do it. Don't
wide
do it.
body
It
Porsche
shouldn't
because
even happen. You wouldn't have to worry about it.
because with the Porsches, the RWB stuff, the rear is a lot wider, right?
Yeah, because you can get more tire because
Yeah,
you're supposed to believe the thing rips.
So imagine a front wheel drive Honda with the extremely wide front and just skinnies in the rear. Oh,
God, you just made
Talking
it
like
even
drag
worse.
car.
yo, that would be sick.
You're so weird. Dude. That is not what I was talking about. But it was even worse than what my example was.
like a reverse wide body, like not like a reverse
man.
wide body, but like instead of you know like what they say about a business in the front, party in the back. Yeah, business in the front, party in the.
You are a wild man.
Yo,
You just got kicked off the design team.
I can't wait to read all the comments
I know, right?
about your perspective.
Sick. But anyhow.
Carry on.
Performance. That is. I agree with the car should be as fast as it looks, or it should be. Yeah, it should be as fast as it looks. And when it doesn't, it's like but
I
still.
mean, it's fairly obvious in the supercar realm. Like you're already good. Wide body, I go crazy. But if you got if your car's weak, you probably should sort that out before going wide body. I think you should need wide tires before you put wide tires on.
As much as I agree, I'm also kind of because I feel like I'm also
biased.
Yeah, I'm like
It's too late for you. You went the other way.
yeah, I'm kind of in the middle of both because I have done the other one too. My Datsun was freaking slow. It's still slow, but it has this massive fender flares and all of that. But it's also disappointing too. Every time I flirt, I'm like, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, and if I was looking at you at a light and you're sitting there and then it's like, bro,
I know, yeah.
hey, what happened to that?
It's funny because I get like some people are like rev it or like they expect me to like gun it from like a stoplight. And so this kid, there was a time I was driving and this kid is like floor it or something like he was
So
like
it is
with his phone.
floored. What are you
I was
talking
like my leg was to the floor. He was like, oh, he just looked disappointed.
Mom, slow down.
I was like, I'm giving it everything, man. I don't know what you
giving
want
it
from me.
everything I got.
Yeah, I was flooring it. It was like, oh, you could almost just see the disappointment in his face because he like pretty much expected a smoky burnout, like me just
As soon as
peeling
you have
off.
anything that looks cool, that's all anybody wants to see it do is a burnout.
Yeah.
Like no matter what it is we pull outside, it's like, do a burnout. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
So
yes. So I will fix that when I do my version 2 Datsun at some point when I'm done with all my other projects. So we shall see. Yes.
like and subscribe.
I know.
We need a lot of dough for him
Yes,
to
we
finish
do.
all of his projects.
Yes, there's a lot of them. So I think that's pretty much it. Anything else?
No,
Sweet.
that's my feelings on what
Awesome. We'll see what the internet
it's a
thinks.
love-hate relationship.
Yes. So if you think we're crazy and you love wide bodies, and let us know what are your favorite wide bodies, or if you have any other comments, you can comment in the description below, or you can email us at media@chickfactory.com. We will see you next week. Bye.